salesperson said to me that the price was about $7,500 above the sticker price that I would be expected to pay. And he actually said that was a great deal.
Edmunds just dropped a bombshell with their latest data, and it's sending shockwaves through the car market. What was once affordable has become a near impossible dream for many Americans. From new car prices that rival house payments to interest rates that make financing feel like a trap, this is the harsh new reality of car ownership. Are we witnessing the end of affordable cars? Buckle up, because the car market is changing in ways we never saw coming. The affordability crisis, a perfect storm. What's happening in today's car market is beyond comprehension. Since 2019, average new car prices have risen by almost 30%, reaching nearly $48,000. But this dramatic increase didn't just happen out of nowhere. It's the product of a perfect storm, and COVID-19 supply chain disruptions, rampant inflation, and an intense consumer demand spike have all merged, creating this crisis. These rising prices are not merely frustrating, they're life-altering for millions of Americans. Imagine that over 73% of Americans now feel that buying a car is beyond their reach. For some, a car loan has become almost as burdensome as a mortgage, with around 15% of new car buyers now dealing with payments exceeding $1,000 per month. That's $1,000 every month just to keep up with the cost of a vehicle. The real question is, how many people can continue to afford these prices? This crisis isn't just affecting new car buyers either. Edmunds' data shows a shocking trend that's reshaping American car ownership itself. With prices this high, many are either holding onto their cars longer or settling for older models that come with their own set of problems. This crisis isn't just about price, it's about shifting the very foundation of car ownership for millions of people. But is there any end in sight? As of now, it doesn't look promising. The factors causing this crisis are still very much in play. The consumer demand for cars remains high, especially as people attempt to return to normal life post-pandemic. Yet the supply chain issues persist, with new inventory lagging, meaning that prices likely won't drop anytime soon. Can we expect any relief, or are we looking at a market that increasingly favors only the wealthiest buyers? The harsh reality of financial strain. The financial burden created by today's car market is staggering, and it goes beyond the sticker shock of high prices. Rising interest rates are compounding the problem, making car loans more expensive than ever before. Many consumers are left in a bind, facing monthly payments that are quickly becoming unmanageable. For those financing new vehicles, the interest rate has nearly doubled from what it was a few years ago, rising to around 10%. For used vehicles, the interest rates are even higher, with some buyers facing annual percentage rates of nearly 14.5%. To put this in perspective, consider a family taking out a $30,000 loan at today's interest rates. Before the pandemic, a loan of this size would come with a monthly payment of around $550, but with current rates, that payment balloons to almost $700. That's an extra $150 per month, an amount that for many families is far from trivial. This isn't just a financial burden, it's a heavy strain on household budgets that are already stretched thin. What's worse, lenders have begun to shift their focus toward borrowers with high credit scores, effectively locking out many people who need financing the most. If you don't have a perfect credit score, securing a reasonable interest rate is next to impossible. Jessica Caldwell, the head of insights at Edmunds, points out that this lending landscape creates a cycle where only the financially privileged can obtain a car without severe financial strain. Those with lower credit scores, meanwhile, are left with inflated interest rates, making the dream of car ownership feel impossible. Can the average American continue to handle these financial strains, or is the car market becoming a closed-off world that only the most affluent can navigate? The disconnect between consumer expectations and market reality. Here's where the car market gets even more disheartening. Edmunds' recent data sheds light on the massive gap between what consumers expect to pay and the reality they face. Many people enter the market hoping to find a new car for around $30,000, which seems reasonable. However, the actual average transaction price for new vehicles has climbed to over $47,700, a shocking figure that's miles beyond what most people budget for. The disconnect isn't just frustrating, it's downright defeating. Imagine the disappointment of walking into a dealership with your budget in mind, only to find that you can't even come close to affording what you want. And for those who hope to find something under $20,000, the situation is even bleaker. Such cars are practically non-existent in today's market. This has led to a growing sense of despair among buyers, many of whom are simply priced out. Jessica Caldwell highlights this issue by explaining that a large percentage of consumers are still operating with pre-pandemic expectations. They recall a time, just a few years ago, when buying a car was manageable, even on a modest budget. Now that kind of thinking leads to frustration and disappointment. People expect a bargain, but what they encounter instead are prices that seem fit for luxury cars, not everyday vehicles. The numbers tell the story clearly. Nearly 48% of new car shoppers hope to spend $35,000 or less on their next vehicle, while around 14% are looking for something even cheaper, aiming for under $20,000. But when the average transaction price sits close to $50,000, it's no wonder so many leave dealerships feeling completely defeated. Is the car industry setting buyers up for failure? The used car crisis, an impossible market, and if you thought the new car market was tough, the used car market is even worse. Edmunds data reveals a grim reality for those hoping to save money by purchasing a used vehicle. The average transaction price for used cars is now nearly $27,000. For many, this is simply out of reach. Nearly half of all used car buyers say they'd need to take on a second job just to afford a vehicle. This statistic is not just alarming, it's a stark indicator of the financial pressure gripping consumers. The reason for these sky-high prices isn't solely demand, it's also about supply. Stricter emission regulations are removing older cars from the market, creating a shrinking pool of affordable vehicles. With fewer budget-friendly options available, prices are being driven up even further. So, if you're looking to buy a used car for a reasonable price, good luck finding one. The choices are few and the prices are daunting. Even more frustrating is the market's infamous price volatility. Used car prices are known to fluctuate wildly, affected by seasonal demand and economic uncertainty. One day, you might find a reasonable price. The next, that same vehicle could be thousands of dollars more expensive. This constant fluctuation makes it nearly impossible for consumers to plan or budget effectively, creating a sense of insecurity and frustration. And then there's the issue of aging inventory. Because new cars are so expensive, many buyers are holding on to their vehicles for longer, meaning that the average age of trade-ins is now over 6 years. This shift means that many used cars on the market today are older and often in need of more maintenance. Buyers expecting newer models at lower prices are in for a rude awakening, as they find themselves choosing between paying more for a newer vehicle or settling for an older one that may come with high upkeep costs. What will it take for the used car market to stabilize? And how long can consumers endure this grueling search for affordability? The interest rate trap, a financial minefield. One of the biggest hurdles facing today's car buyers isn't just the sticker price, it's the sky-high interest rates attached to car loans. Edmunds has pointed out that interest rates for both new and used car loans have reached levels we haven't seen in years. Think about this. Before the pandemic, new car loans averaged an interest rate of around 4%. Fast forward to today, and that rate has doubled, sitting around 10%. For used cars, it's even worse, with average annual percentage rates climbing to over 11%. For those with less than perfect credit scores, some are even being offered rates as high as 14.5%. Now, let's put these numbers into perspective. If a consumer takes out a $30,000 loan at a 10% interest rate, they're looking at monthly payments that could easily reach $700 or more. This kind of expense can throw even the most carefully managed household budget into chaos. For many families, a car payment this high is simply unsustainable, yet they're left with little choice if they need a reliable vehicle. This situation has created what many are calling an interest rate trap. Edmunds data shows that many prospective buyers are being forced to reconsider their options entirely, either by holding off on buying a car or by seeking alternative transportation methods. For some, that means public transit or ride-sharing services. But what about those who live in areas where public transportation isn't reliable or accessible? These consumers are left with few options and a mounting sense of frustration. What's even more concerning is that lending practices have shifted in a way that favors only the most financially stable buyers. Today's lenders are more selective, offering the best rates to those with high credit scores while shutting out many who need affordable financing the most. It's become almost a club, a VIP club of finance, where only the privileged can enjoy lower rates. Those with lower credit scores, however, face a financial nightmare, often seeing monthly payments that far exceed what they can reasonably afford. How long will it be before interest rates come back down? And in the meantime, will the average American be able to navigate this financial minefield without falling into debt? The shrinking supply and the used car dilemma. In addition to financial challenges, the used car market is grappling with another devastating issue: Dwindling supply. Stricter emission regulations have forced many older cars off the roads, leaving a much smaller pool of used vehicles available for sale. For those hoping to find an affordable used car, the options are fewer and the prices are shockingly high. Imagine trying to find a reliable used car within a budget of $15,000 only to discover that most vehicles in that range are either non-existent or have miles, and where that make them risky investments. Jessica Caldwell from Edmunds explains that the shrinking inventory of used vehicles is creating a crisis for budget-conscious buyers who can't afford the rising prices of new cars. In many cases, buyers are now forced to choose between paying more than they planned for a used car or holding off entirely. This isn't just about money, it's about accessibility and fairness in a market that should offer a variety of options. The issue is further compounded by price volatility. Used car prices are notorious for their unpredictable swings. A vehicle might be priced reasonably one day, only for the price to surge a few weeks later due to a shortage or a spike in demand. This volatility makes it nearly impossible for buyers to predict or plan for their purchase, leading to a sense of helplessness. The market isn't giving consumers much choice, and it's fueling frustration across the board. Adding to the complexity is the age of the vehicles on the used market. With so many consumers holding onto their cars longer, the average age of trade-ins has now surpassed 6 years. This means that the cars available are often older models, some of which require costly maintenance or repairs. Buyers who may have once expected to find a reliable, newer model in the used market are now being met with high prices on older vehicles. So they're faced with a tough decision: pay for a newer model with a high price tag, or settle for an older car that might come with hidden repair costs. This choice is forcing consumers into a corner with no easy way out. Except, where does this leave those looking for an affordable, reliable vehicle? And how can the used car market find a way to balance supply and demand in a way that doesn't price out millions of buyers? The psychological toll on consumers. Beyond the financial and logistical hurdles, the current car market is taking a serious psychological toll on consumers. Buying a car used to be an exciting experience, a milestone that symbolized freedom, independence, and convenience. Today, however, that excitement is often replaced by stress, frustration, and even resentment. With prices that far exceed expectations and financing that feels like a trap, many buyers are finding themselves disillusioned with the entire car buying process. This disillusionment is reflected in countless personal stories. Take, for example, one potential buyer who shared her experience with Edmunds. After visiting multiple dealerships, she found herself unable to afford anything that remotely fit her budget. What she had hoped would be an exciting purchase quickly turned into a disheartening ordeal. Many consumers are going through similar experiences, left wondering if they'll ever be able to afford a decent car. The emotional toll is especially harsh for families who are already feeling the strain of other rising costs, like housing, healthcare, and education. For these families, the high price of a vehicle isn't just a financial inconvenience, it's a threat to their overall well-being. Some have had to make difficult sacrifices, choosing between a reliable car and other essential needs. Imagine having to decide between purchasing a car and ensuring adequate healthcare or education for your family. It's a dilemma no one should have to face. What will it take for the car market to regain consumer trust? And is there any relief in sight for those who feel they've been priced out of an essential purchase? The market disconnect, aspirations versus reality. The current car market is riddled with contradictions, especially when it comes to consumer expectations versus what's actually available. Edmunds' latest research has revealed a striking mismatch between what buyers want to spend and what they're forced to pay. For example, a significant portion of buyers, nearly 48%, are hoping to purchase a new car for $35,000 or less. Yet the reality is that most new cars are priced far beyond that range, with the average transaction price now approaching $50,000. For those holding out hope for a new car under $20,000, the picture is even grimmer. Edmunds' data shows that almost no new vehicles are available at that price point, leaving budget-conscious buyers with few options. This disconnect isn't just frustrating for consumers, it's alienating. Imagine the average buyer, excited to finally upgrade their vehicle, only to realize their expectations are entirely out of sync with the current market. The shock is real, and it's leading many to simply walk away from dealerships feeling defeated. This growing gap between aspiration and reality has sparked frustration that extends beyond just numbers on a price tag. Jessica Caldwell of Edmunds points out that the car industry has shifted dramatically since the pandemic, but many consumers are still clinging to pre-pandemic expectations. For them, the prices they're encountering now are simply outlandish, creating a sense of betrayal and resentment. Are car manufacturers even aware of this discontent, or is the focus so heavily placed on profit margins that consumer expectations have taken a back seat? The resurgence of negative equity, a financial trap? One of the more troubling developments in the automotive world today is the resurgence of negative equity. During the pandemic, a buying frenzy led many consumers to purchase cars at inflated prices, often with extended loan terms that stretched far beyond traditional timelines. Now, as these buyers look to trade in or upgrade their vehicles, they're facing a harsh reality. Their cars are worth less than the remaining balance on their loans. In other words, they owe more than their cars are worth, trapping them in a cycle of negative equity. Negative equity isn't just a financial inconvenience, it's a financial trap that prevents people from upgrading to new or even different used vehicles without taking a significant financial hit. For many, this situation is disheartening, as they're left with cars they no longer want or need but can't afford to replace. And with interest rates continuing to climb, refinancing isn't a viable option either. Jessica Caldwell explains that the shift to longer loan terms, some reaching up to 7 years, has worsened this issue. While longer terms may reduce monthly payments, they increase the risk of negative equity. It's a classic case of short-term gain leading to long-term pain, and as more buyers realize they're in over their heads, the frustration mounts. This is a situation that feels unfair to those affected, who are often left feeling misled by lenders and dealers alike. Is the automotive industry doing enough to educate buyers about the risks of negative equity, or is it a problem that's simply being ignored? The emotional and financial cost of extended ownership. One of the consequences of today's market conditions is that people are holding on to their cars longer than ever before. The average age of vehicles on the road has now surpassed 12 years, according to Edmunds, as consumers delay their purchases and avoid the high costs associated with today's car market. On the surface, this might seem like a smart financial choice, but there's a hidden cost: the expenses that come with maintaining older vehicles. Moreover, there's the emotional toll of driving an older, less reliable car. For many, a car represents freedom and independence, but as vehicles age, they become less dependable, which can create a sense of anxiety for owners. No one wants to worry about their car breaking down on the way to work or while driving their children to school. This emotional strain is a real and often overlooked aspect of extended ownership. Edmunds' data suggests that the decision to hold on to older cars isn't always voluntary. For a growing number of consumers, it's the only option in a market where both new and used car prices are out of reach. But what happens when these older cars finally reach the end of their lifespan? With the cost of repairs adding up and the availability of affordable replacement vehicles dwindling, the future looks uncertain for these consumers. Is the industry prepared to meet the demand for affordable, reliable cars, or will consumers continue to bear the financial and emotional brunt of extended ownership? The decline of entry-level options, a crisis for first-time buyers. One of the most startling trends in today's car market is the decline of affordable entry-level vehicles. Gone are the days when you could walk into a dealership and find a reliable brand new car for under $20,000. According to Edmunds, there are virtually no new cars available at that price point anymore. This shift has created a massive barrier for first-time buyers, many of whom are young people entering the workforce or families looking for a second vehicle. Jessica Caldwell from Edmunds explains that as manufacturers pivot toward high-margin SUVs and luxury models, they're leaving behind a huge portion of the market. For years, entry-level cars were a staple, offering a practical, accessible option for millions of buyers. Today, however, the focus has shifted to producing high-end models that bring in larger profits, leaving budget-conscious buyers with limited options. The result is that many potential buyers are priced out of the market altogether. The situation isn't just about affordability, it's about access to opportunity. Reliable transportation is crucial for many aspects of life, from commuting to work to accessing essential services. For those unable to afford a car, this lack of affordable options can restrict their mobility and, in turn, their economic opportunities. Without entry-level vehicles, how are young professionals or lower-income families supposed to secure reliable transportation? Are manufacturers prepared to address this gap, or is the market for affordable cars a thing of the past? Rising demand for alternative transportation options. As prices in the car market continue to soar, many Americans are looking for alternatives. Edmunds' data shows a growing trend of people abandoning the idea of car ownership altogether in favor of alternative transportation. Public transit, ride-sharing services, car subscriptions, and even biking have become popular options for those priced out of the car market. This shift in behavior is both a reflection of the financial strain many consumers are under and a response to the lack of affordable vehicle options. For residents of urban areas, public transit and ride-sharing provide a feasible alternative to car ownership. However, this isn't an option for everyone. Many people live in areas where public transit is limited or unreliable, leaving them with few choices. In these cases, car ownership remains a necessity, and the high costs are particularly punishing for those with limited options. This growing divide highlights an important issue. As prices rise, transportation becomes a privilege rather than a right, creating a two-tiered society of those who can afford to drive and those who cannot. For families and individuals living outside city centers, alternatives like car-sharing services are often too impractical, costly, or simply unavailable. Even so, the shift toward alternative transportation is a significant trend that's reshaping the landscape of mobility in America. If car prices continue to climb, will we see more people abandoning car ownership entirely? And what does this mean for the future of the car market and its relationship with everyday consumers? A wake-up call for the automotive industry. The data from Edmunds should serve as a wake-up call for the automotive industry. As prices rise and entry-level vehicles vanish, more and more consumers are left feeling alienated and frustrated. This is no longer a temporary trend or a mere side effect of economic fluctuations. It's a fundamental shift that threatens the long-term stability of the car market. Manufacturers must realize that prioritizing high-margin vehicles at the expense of affordable options is a short-sighted strategy. To address the needs of today's consumers, the industry will need to refocus on producing a broader range of vehicles. This doesn't mean abandoning high-end models, but rather finding a balance that includes affordable options. Edmunds' data reveals that over 73% of potential buyers have delayed purchasing a car due to high prices, and this statistic alone is a red flag. If the industry continues down this path, it risks driving away a large segment of its customer base. Another potential solution lies in innovative financing options. By working with financial institutions to create flexible, accessible loan terms, the industry can help mitigate the financial burden on consumers. This could include lower interest rates for first-time buyers or programs aimed at buyers with limited credit histories. Edmunds highlights that the future of car ownership may rely on such creative solutions, as traditional financing options become less viable for many consumers. Will the industry take this crisis seriously and adapt? Or will it continue to focus solely on profit margins at the expense of its consumers? The car market is facing challenges we've never seen before, and the data from Edmunds paints a clear picture of an industry on the brink of transformation. For millions of Americans, car ownership is now a financial burden rather than an attainable goal. With skyrocketing prices, limited inventory, and a lack of affordable options, the industry faces a crucial decision. Will it adapt to meet the needs of everyday consumers, or will it continue to push them away in pursuit of higher profits? We hope this deep dive into Edmunds' findings has given you some insight into the unprecedented shifts happening in the automotive world. If you found this information valuable, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on our future updates. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Are you rethinking car ownership in today's market? Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.